that there is a guide to avoiding humiliation inside the Oval Office tells us something about this incoming administration. So what do you say to foreign leaders as they deal with Donald Trump once again?
Look, every foreign ministry and government worth its salt is preparing madly for how to deal with Donald Trump because they were taken by surprise in 2016. Not that many suspected he would win. And it was a pretty rough experience for some world leaders, Angela Merkel in Germany, Justin Trudeau in Canada, who we know from Trump officials at the time, he came to really loathe them. And that had consequences for their country's policies. And look, foreign governments, they don't get to vote in American elections. They have no choice. They have to deal with the President of America. So they are all studying, comparing notes, looking at what worked and what didn't work last time. And the column I wrote was really trying to tackle some of this sort of advice you hear is really, really simplistic. It's you flatter the guy, you feed him burgers and ice cream, you give him treats and presents like kind of golf clubs. And the problem is, you know, you're not organizing a toddler's birthday party here. You are actually trying to run foreign policy with a world superpower. And so I set out to speak to people who'd been in the room for between them hundreds of hours and who'd seen what worked and what didn't work.
So, David, I mean, there is a sense that flattery, to some extent, does work. I mean, all these cabinet picks that he's laying out, for example, all appear on Fox News, flatter Donald Trump, support him. Yeah, I'm remembering back at the beginning of the first Trump term when he traveled to Saudi Arabia and they projected his face on the side of the hotel. President Macron has come to understand how to massage Donald Trump politically as well. So what are the limits, though, to that flattery? You say that's not quite enough to get what you want from him.
Yeah, so literally ambassadors and diplomats would say to me, flattery is sometimes essential. But that doesn't mean that you're going to change his mind or trick him or distract him into doing something that he doesn't intend to do. It's almost like a down payment. I think there is agreement among people who've negotiated with him that he's a bully, that he likes to be the most powerful man in the room and he likes deference. So to some extent, that flattery is not something that makes him happy. It's just like a sort of, it's like a, you know, animals in a farmyard, you roll over on your back and you show that you are the submissive animal. I think that's the role of the flattery. But a crucial point is that he'll only listen to people flattering him if he respects their strength. And the thing that seems to frustrate him the most is what he apparently calls sort of passive-aggressive, preachy, lecturing, whiny leaders. And that a lot of European leaders fall into that camp. He likes leaders who can deliver on a deal that he can cut with them at the moment in the Oval Office or when he goes and visits them abroad. And so that's really what interests him. And the flattery is necessary, but as one diplomat said, it's not a silver bullet.
So, David, we saw wildly different responses yesterday from the leaders of Mexico and Canada as to Trump's trade threats. Also, we're hearing from some Trump advisors who already, once he takes office, want to schedule another meeting with Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, believing that face-to-face diplomacy could help relations there. And as part of that is the idea of the madman theory. The Trump team, the first time around, leaned into the idea because he was so unpredictable, that made him hard to deal with. Do you think that could be effective for him going forward?
It works as long as people don't think you're bluffing. And I think that one of the concerns, you know, looking at his record in the first term was that sometimes a lot of those kind of fire and fury threats to kind of potentially start a war with North Korea, people came to believe in some pretty rough corners of the world that actually he wasn't really that keen on using military force, that he likes to talk tough. He talks big, but it's not actually real. And I can tell you that because until quite recently, I was our Beijing bureau chief, and I spent years talking to Chinese officials, some very senior officials, about how they view Donald Trump. And by the end of his first term, look, they take him seriously because he could be about to hit their economy with huge tariffs. They don't underestimate how dangerous he could be. But they came to believe that he's not actually really as hawkish or as tough or as keen on military force as he likes to make out. And that their view is that he was a very transactional guy surrounded by genuine China hawks. And if only they could get to him and cut a deal directly, actually, maybe he doesn't believe in very much. He doesn't dislike dictators. He doesn't disapprove of people using iron-fisted tactics. He often says that's clever and smart. And so I think the world's dictators, they're wary of him. That unpredictability clearly gives him an edge. But they came in their first term to think that maybe he's not quite as tough and willing to start wars as some of his rhetoric might lead you to think.
All right, we're about to find out. Geopolitics editor at The Economist, David Rennie, with a fascinating piece. David, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Up next, important for the holidays, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg will join the conversation with an announcement on protections for passengers stranded by airline disruptions.
1 second, they're a neighbor you like. The next, they're a neighbor you trust.
Gotcha, no problem.
1 second, you're worrying about your home. And then, thanks to ADT, there's a lot less to worry about. Feel secure enough to let others in with Trusted Neighbor from ADT.
Does your wife know you spent over $600 on takeout?
We're busy. We don't have time to cook.
Okay, but do you know you're also paying for a meal kit on top of that?
Wait, really?
Look, just get Relic Kit Money. It shows you all your expenses in one place, and it even tracks your subscriptions. And any subscription you don't want, which features a lot you don't need, you can cancel right in the app.
So you mean I don't have to call customer service to cancel?
Nope, no hold times or anything. And we'll even try to get you a refund for the money you spent, which I'm sure your wife will appreciate.
Downloading Rocket Money right now.
When you need brutal honesty, when you need answers first thing in the morning, when you need to go deep inside Washington and hear from someone who's been there, you need your Morning Joe, weekdays at 6, only on MSNBC.
How much have you paid people to pull out customers who are in line with a bag that's 2 centimeters too big, Mr. Schroeder?
Well, we recognize this is a hard job, and so therefore we incentivize them to do that.
How much?
It's $10 per bag.
Wow. $10 per bag. I mean, you guys do appreciate that flying on your airlines is a disaster, don't you? I'm slightly amazed by the general attitude of all of you here. Flying on your airlines is horrible. It's a terrible experience. I mean, I say this as a father of 3 young children, but I can't tell you, nobody enjoys flying on your airlines. It's a disaster.
Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri addressing the CEOs of major airlines at a hearing yesterday on Capitol Hill. With commercial air travel now surpassing pre-COVID levels, the Biden administration this morning is laying the groundwork to further protect stranded passengers when airlines cancel or significantly change flights. Under the potential new regulations, airlines would have to pay passengers at least $200 in cash compensation, rebook their next flight at no additional costs, and cover meals, overnight lodging, and related transportation expenses resulting from the delay or cancellation. Let's bring in Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg with more on this. Mr. Secretary, thanks for joining us this morning. So these seem to most travelers like common sense solutions to a problem that plagues so many of us. With the airport so busy, you get delayed, you get canceled, you don't know where to go, where am I going to stay, where's my next meal coming? So how close do you believe you are to getting these implemented?
Well, we have to go through a process, getting a lot of public input and data, but this launches a process that I think will lead to more improvements for passengers. There's really two goals here. Make sure those kinds of disruptions are less likely to happen in the first place, and make sure you're taken care of when you do. That's been a big part of our push over the last several years as we've expanded passenger rights and as we've been putting pressure on the airlines. Cancellation rates have improved substantially. So far this year, it's around 1.3%. So we know that this approach works, making sure there are consequences when you let passengers down, and making sure that if that does happen, passengers are better taken care of. What's new here is for the first time, we're launching a process where the department would consider cash compensation and other requirements about what the airline has to do in those situations if it's caused by the airline. We get that nobody controls the weather, but if the airline gets you stuck, there ought to be some kind of regard, not only for getting you on your way, but also for the cost in terms of your time. And I would note that these kinds of policies are something you'll see widely used around the world, but up until now, we have not seen them in the United States.
Mr. Secretary, it's not often that I would think I would be agreeing with Senator Josh Hawley on much, but I certainly agree with him in that clip we just showed at the hearing. Commercial air travel in America for the average flying customer, people like me, is a nightmare. What can we do about the fact that when an airline is delaying a flight incomprehensibly long, it's going to be delayed for 3 hours or whatever, what can we do about getting a cash payment back for the ticket? Because it is inflicted pain on our time, on customers' times, on family times. But the airlines seem hesitant to just say, okay, here's a refund.
Well, that's something that we have enacted through our automatic refund rule, and that is taking effect this year, and I think will make a big difference. The idea here is if an airline owes you, as they do for a flight that's canceled or delayed past a certain amount, there's a 3-hour threshold for domestic flights, but longer for international flights, then you shouldn't have to fight or send an email or negotiate to get your money back. It should just come to you. And we finally were able to do that this year. What we're now announcing with today's process is that you would also get some kind of compensation for your time. There are a lot of places around the world where you would get some level of cash. And the concept that is in this proposal would start at a $200 cash payment to you, in addition to anything else that you're entitled to, if you are stuck and it's because of the airline. Also, requirements around